petitions seeking restoration of 4G mobile in Jammu and Kashmir, and this amid the coronavirus outbreak that the entire country is battling. A bench led by Justice N.V. Ramana recently reserved its judgment in the case. Now the court has agreed that 4G was faster than 2G internet, though a balance would have to be struck between healthcare in the time of pandemic and national security concerns in Jammu and Kashmir. Now the three-judge bench all set to deliver the very important verdict, because remember, it was 27th April when the administration extended the ban on high-speed internet, and this till 11th of May itself. Now the administration stated that it was done to curb circulation of rumor mongering, and also how there has been an upscale in terror activities in the valley. In that sense, it was important to curb these restrictions, to in fact put a full stop to 4G as far as the Kashmir Valley is concerned. But now the Supreme Court, which is all set to pronounce the verdict on restoration of 4G in the valley. Tejinder Singh Sodhi, my colleague, joining us with more details. Tejinder, a very important verdict, because this in itself will be a decision which the Supreme Court has to take, keeping in mind both the healthcare aspect and also the security aspect. Quickly taking that question and putting it out to Nalini, our legal correspondent. Nalini.
Well, yes, just in a short while from now, Kritsveen, we are expecting further verdict to be pronounced by the Supreme Court. The three-judge bench of Justice N.V. Ramana, R. Subhash Reddy, as well as Justice B.R. Gavai is going to be pronouncing this order. Now, importantly, last week when the Supreme Court had reserved this order, the bench of Justice N.V. Ramana had reserved this order. They had heard detailed arguments from both sides, from the centre as well as the petitioners in the case. And essentially, the centre had come forth and opposed the petitions on the ground that they will directly impact national security. The reason that the centre gave was that they said that several terrorist organizations as well as several people who were outward elements in the region of Jammu and Kashmir were in fact using this 4G mobile technology to communicate with each other and to plan their activities, which is why it was important for 4G to remain suspended in the area. Remember, 2G internet services are working in Jammu and Kashmir. Right now, they have been active since the last order that had come in place by the Supreme Court. At the same time, what the petitioner stated was that the 2G internet speed that has been given, as well as the landline internet, is against the fundamental rights, against several fundamental rights of the petitioners, including that of rights of education as well as rights to livelihood. Essentially meaning that there were several people in the region whose job was being stopped because there was no internet available. A lot of essential service workers who were available in the region could not carry on their duties because there was no internet available. So it remains to be seen exactly what the Supreme Court decides today, because there are very strong arguments on both the sides. Of course, the centre has resorted to national security, which is going to be above everything else when it comes to deciding something for the state, because the region of Jammu and Kashmir is a turmoil sort of a region, which is why it's important to take into considerations also what on-ground reports by the government are saying about what is happening on the state. And that's exactly what Solicitor General Tushar Mehta had also told the Supreme Court, that it is people on ground who will take the decision as to whether or not internet should be restored, because they are in the best know-how of exactly what the situation is and whether or not it's safe to restore 4G internet into the area or not.
Oh yes, let's quickly go across to Zeenat, who's joining us from Srinagar, because she's been closely keeping a watch on all the developments which have been taking place there, and is why this verdict becomes so very important, because the top court will have to strike a balance between how healthcare officials are apparently finding it difficult to reach out to patients in the valley. And Zeenat, we've been seeing how the situation has been looking like in the valley in the past so many days. We've been seeing an upscale and ceasefire violations. We've been seeing several encounters that have been taking place. If you could just take us through the latest on that front.
As today all eyes are on Supreme Court's verdict, because the people are anxiously waiting what the Supreme Court will pronounce today, because as far as the 4G internet services are concerned, we are seeing services suspended since August last year after the abrogation of Article 370. That time also the calling facility was snapped, landlines were snapped, but later in October the calling facility were restored by the BSNL and other service providers. But as far as the mobile internet services is concerned, 2G has been restored in March, but people are really finding it difficult to work when it comes to 2G speed, because they are not able to upload the material or to download it. As far as when you talk about the present crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic crisis, the information that is coming from the government in order to safeguard and protect and to break the chain of virus. Even the people are not able to download the relevant and the important information, although there had been several petitions that were filed by the people from Jammu and Kashmir and Supreme Court, asking Supreme Court to give a balanced verdict on it, because it is really difficult for the people, particularly the students, to download the material when it comes to education of these kids. And when you see in this COVID-19 pandemic lockdown, when there are online classes that are being conducted by different schools, different institutes, the children, those who are using the mobile apps, and they are not able to conduct their present in themselves in the classes properly, because the speed is extremely low. When it comes to business class, their business has suffered immensely for the last so many months now. They are not able to carry their day-to-day activities. And presently the biggest issue for citizens of Jammu and Kashmir is that whatever the information, whether it's coming from ICMR, whether it is coming from any app or any material, the research material that is coming from across globe, they are not able to download or able to read it. Even the school kids have been affected immensely. So today all the Jammu and Kashmir residents are keeping an eye on Supreme Court verdict, because today is going to be very important, because if the 4G system is restored, definitely it is going to give a big relief to the people here. Although there had been the reports coming from the Union Territory Administration citing reasons, national security.
All right, Zeenat, as we speak, some breaking inputs we're picking up from inside the top court. Nalini and Akhilesh keeping us ahead on the same. Nalini will be able to give us more inputs, but the Supreme Court now saying that one needs to ensure balance, that a balance must be struck as far as this particular verdict is concerned, because both national security and human rights are equally important. Supreme Court also asking the centre to constitute a committee of secretaries of state and centre, a special committee to take into consideration the points raised by the petitioners. But for the moment, no restoration of 4G in Jammu and Kashmir. As of now, that is what the top court has decided. Further, the committee will take a decision on the same. The Supreme Court has asked the centre to constitute a committee, but for the moment, no restoration of 4G in Jammu and Kashmir. Nalini also continues to be with us as we keep our viewers ahead on all the breaking updates, but no restoration of 4G in Jammu and Kashmir. This means that high-speed internet will not be resuming in the valley. Nalini, more inputs, please.
Yes, Krichwin, the Supreme Court has come forth and said that they will not be interfering in this issue for now. They have essentially asked the centre and the states to come together, the region of Jammu and Kashmir. They've asked the secretaries belonging to the centre as well as the region of Jammu and Kashmir to form a committee which will be headed by the MHA, which is going to see exactly what the situation on the ground is and then take a decision on whether or not 4G internet should be restored. The reason why the Supreme Court has done this is because the Supreme Court has said that there are some very good points that have been made by the petitioners pertaining to their right to education as well as right to livelihood. But at the same time, a balance needs to be maintained between the fundamental rights of the citizens along with the concerns regarding national security. That is why the Supreme Court said that they are not.
So Supreme Court there emphasizing on the fact that a balance must be maintained when it comes to both the national security and the healthcare problems which are being faced by the people there in regards to the human rights also. Nalini, Zeenat and Tejinder, we'll leave it at that. We'll come back to you. For the moment, we have to slip into a short break here.